All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg, and I was struggling a little bit there, Carlos. I'd tested everything beforehand like I'm supposed to. I want to get your full head in there, the shot. I got cut mine off too. All sorts of difficulties. It's actually, we've got Los Childs and Did Leftist. If you look at the name, we'll get that right. We'll fix that for you folks as well. Carlos, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good on this wonderful Martin Luther King Jr.'s day.
It really is the day for Dr. King, for us to celebrate him, to remember his life, his legacy, and that was my thumbnail, of course. And yeah, the mountaintop is still so far. I want to ask you this, Carlos, as a young man who obviously you don't remember Dr. King, and even the folks who raised you, because look, I could be your dad. I mean, just so folks, I know you look at me and you're like, oh my God, how old is he? Like 28? How could he be? He and Carlos are brothers. Yeah. No, actually, no. But I don't remember Dr. King. He was assassinated when I was 6 years old. So is he a hazy memory for young folks? Or how, what role does he play in the life of, of young Black people today?
Yeah, I mean, Martin Luther King is definitely, I did not grow up ever watching him like on TV at live or anything. He definitely is somebody that gets passed down through generations of different stories about Martin Luther King. I will say they're kind of two different versions of Martin Luther King. You have which kind of my family exposed me to was the more like radical version of Martin Luther King, talking about the civil rights protests, but also his call for strikes and work with workers as well. And then you have kind of what a lot of people learn from just school, which is the whitewash version of Martin Luther King, where it was just equality. All he cared for was like ending segregation and things like that. But that's kind of the extent and kind of the viewpoint that everybody always loved Martin Luther King. He was always praised. And then also as a Black person, I grew up also knowing that Martin Luther King, for honestly his whole life, was hated by the majority of people. He was not this kind of renowned, supported person like we see him now. But my family also raised me learning about people like Malcolm X, learning about the other kind of versions of Black radicals, as far as it is as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really critical that we talk that history. I don't know how much is in schools, as you say, and I assume it's true, as you have kind of this avuncular king, not the one who was demanding, absolutely justice for all working people. I mean, he'd expanded from just a focus on civil rights for Black people once the civil rights acts were passed, and he didn't say, oh, this is it, we're done. He was like, no, we got to keep pushing for Black people, also for poor white people, for people around the world. Peace in Vietnam was a huge issue for him. He refused not to talk about peace. I worry, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, because I've always had so much admiration for his willingness to take on an injustice everywhere and take on those who are promoting injustice everywhere, that maybe I'm not seeing the King that some radicals have said was too much of a peacemaker, was too nonviolent. He did promote nonviolent, as he called it, confrontation, nonviolent. He didn't say we're just nonviolent. It was like, no, we're nonviolent action. We get in people's faces. We're going to make people uncomfortable. We're going to make people feel the tension of injustice. But is there a sense, do you think, that either you have or that many others have now, that he was great for the 60s, but we've got to do different things and be more aggressive than Dr. King was?
No, definitely. I mean, you have even in his time, he was seen as kind of a more, I dare to say, compromised version of like the Malcolm X side of politics, of Black politics, where you had Malcolm X was more of the we will be violent if you're violent with us, whereas Dr. King, it was more of a we are not physically violent with you. We are more violent when it comes to our speaking and rhetoric and protests. I also do think that, I believe it was Stokely Carmichael who put it, that nonviolence really only works if the person that you are trying to appeal to understands and recognizes your humanity. Where a lot of times the same people who Dr. King was protesting, the white people then, and you could even say now in some parts too, don't really recognize the full humanity of Black people. So a lot of that really wasn't. I don't know how consequential the nonviolent part was if you also did not have the quote unquote violent part of some of the people in
The
Malcolm X's camp.
segregationists,
Yeah.
right? So
Oh
you
no,
saw
no,
the
no. My thought,
juxtaposition.
no. My thought is kind of Martin Luther King may not have been as successful if you did not also have people like Malcolm X at the same time. Like you needed hey, this is what it could go to if you all do not do something about it. So do something about it now while the majority of people are more quote unquote peaceful in their fight.
So this is my understanding. Maybe I'm incorrect. My understanding is that as the 60s moved on, and I believe Malcolm X was assassinated in 1965. I may have that year wrong. That he was moving a little bit towards King in terms of building, if nothing else, building a multiracial, multi-ethnic movement. And King was also moving towards Malcolm X, in terms of being even more confrontational. And that may be why Malcolm X was assassinated, because he was going to become even more effective if the two leaders had joined forces. But my sense is that Malcolm X's message, and I read his autobiography for what that's worth, wasn't that dissimilar from Dr. King's.
No, yeah, they had definitely big similarities to them as well. And definitely later on in life, they both kind of were coming to almost like a mutual agreement, or not mutual kind of mindset when it comes to how to move forward, where even Dr. King looked at it and said that this push for desegregation and integration is almost like me leading my own people into a burning building. So you also have that set when you have Malcolm X who went into Africa, in different parts of the Latin America too, and kind of saw a Black-white revolution against colonialism and things like that as well. So they both had kind of separate experiences that kind of made them see the other's viewpoint as well.
Let me phrase it a little differently, because this is a question that's really, I have a belief that if Dr. King had not been assassinated, things would be different. I believe he was the one figure, even recognizing there was so much bitter hatred against him in the what had been the segregationist South, and what so many white Southerners wanted to return to, the Jim Crow South. Recognizing that he had so much stature, he was viewed really as a truly noble person, as I believe he was, one of the few. And I understand there were peccadillos, like we don't have to get into that. In terms of his political leadership, this was a truly moral man, a man who always put justice first, last, and always, in my opinion, what he perceived, and I agree with his perceptions of justice. I think he would have been able to, and because he was also not partisan, he did not, I'm sure he was maybe registered as a Democrat, but he didn't associate himself as part of the Democratic Party in any way. I think he could have, more than anyone else, led people to demand more from the Democratic Party, or to move, away from the Democratic Party.
Oh, 100%. I will also say it was talked about that right before his assassination, that there was even talks about Dr. King creating a third party and running as a Black pro Black party as well. So you have kind of the sense that Dr. King saw that the Democrats are only going to go but so far, and kind of in that theory of the white liberals, but at the same time he saw Republicans weren't going to help us either. And I do want to say that I believe Dr. King was a part of the kind of like the great shift, or that like southern strategy where like Democrats became Republicans, Republicans became Democrats. They had the big switch. But yeah, no, Dr. King. Here's what else I'll say. I wonder how effective Dr. King could have been in today's era if he still was alive, just given how this country demonizes civil rights heroes, and also how we see our current civil rights heroes now. You look at people like Angela Davis, who works at a predominantly white college or a college. You have people like John Lewis, Elijah Cummings, who went into Congress and kind of settled.
They sold out. Let's face it, they sold out. I don't think that would have happened with Dr. King. I think that I just can't. If that would shake me to the core. That if he, the way John Lewis took money from the pharmaceutical industry and then fought against Medicare for all, I would be just brokenhearted if Dr. King would do something like that. I would ask you, assuming that he wouldn't have, why have we not found? Has there not been a leader with the kind of moral clarity and influence of Dr. King in the 57 years since he was assassinated, of any color? I don't mean black, white, Latino, Asian. There's nobody. Unless I'm missing somebody. Tell me if I'm missing somebody.
I mean, you had your like Fred Hamptons within in that in between time too. Some people could even say you had Jesse Jackson. I also want to say that
I'm just going to push back on that. There are certain aspects of Jesse Jackson's career that I do find admirable. I don't think, honestly, he stacks up in terms of just that moral clarity.
I'll say
speaking with that.
No, I also think that. How do I put this? I also think that you have a problem just of money getting involved in a lot of those like people who were not assassinated, where they were the ones who kind of like picked up the mantle, but also gave into this like nonprofit industrial complex. But I'll also say that a big issue of it is I think that it's hard to be a quote unquote leader and stay moral the whole time too. So I don't know if it's just our country is not in the mood of having leaders still, or if it's just that it's too corrupting to have these huge leaders by themselves. And I will say sometimes we get into a problem with the figurehead mentality of where you have like one person who people see like they are the person to lead the revolution, and then it turns into this sort of like, I'm no longer gonna do anything for it. I'm just giving all my power to that person and let that person run with it. And then I mean, thirdly, you look at social media as being a hand of it too. A lot of us don't feel connected, where you used to have people come out to like movements, and yes, people still go to protests, but a lot of those like protests are being put on by multiple different organizations. Sometimes no one knows who's putting it on, and then the money that's actually behind it as well.
You mentioned Fred Hampton, who was a Black Panther and an organizer who was extremely effective. He was murdered by the Chicago authorities, police. I'm just looking at his Wikipedia page. Is that part of the dynamic here, that those who really were committed to true social justice, even if maybe they had slightly different visions? I would warrant Hampton's vision was a little different than Dr. King's, but both were incorruptible. Both were, their vision was true justice. The people like that are going to get killed.
Yeah. Basically, like it. If you're really about a working class, building up a multiracial working class movement, or even a Black revolutionist movement, I'll say you are the state's number one priority and on the top of their quote unquote kill list at this point. You do not see, and when we look at some of these other revolutionaries or people, you've either seen them go into like obscurity, or they turn into the nonprofit system. So there's no really reason to take them out in a lot of instances as well.
We got Carlos with us. It's Dr. King's Day. I don't know how they chose this day for it, the fourth Monday, I guess, of January. I don't know if it has some somewhat proximity to his birthday. I believe it was in January, but I might be wrong about that. So I have to be very careful what I say if I'm going to get it. Try to be right as much as possible. I want to just spend a little more time with Dr. King, and then maybe through the program.
Can I say one more thing, actually, Hal,
Yeah,
too, on
please,
that?
please.
Yeah, one more thing too. I think is that we kind of went into almost the celebritification of these leaders as well, where people will see celebrities almost as the second generation of like civil rights heroes. People looking at rappers or like actors who are like picked to talk about these heavy political concepts. We no longer have like the like I'm gonna say this the same name here. Unfortunately, that history doesn't really reflect a whole lot of different people. But looking at like how you used to have like Stokely Carmichael, Malcolm X, even Louis Farrakhan for all of his faults as well, go on TV, talk about their like ideology, philosophy, grow their like leadership in an actual organic way. You now see that being kind of replaced with like celebrities and social media influencers as the people who talk about like political theories and ideologies and things of that nature, but it's always filtered in through a party as well. And kind of how you see people like Killer Mike being pushed up as like a black revolutionary leader, when it's like he also has aspects of capitalism within him too. People hype up black billionaires as people who can like lead a movement or anything, but it really doesn't.
No, they're ultimately part of the problem. Even if they're good people who treat their wives and kids well and give their dog treats, the aggregation of billions of dollars in any one individual's hand is in and of itself terribly problematic. By the way, there you go, January 5th, 29, Dr.
15.
King's birthday. So he would not even be 100 if he, did I do the math right? Yeah, he wouldn't quite, he could conceivably still be alive if his life hadn't been taken from him.
Noam Chomsky's still alive. So yeah.
Is he? He seems like he's kind of walking dead. He's lost a lot of his on his fastball. If he ever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean Chomsky's lost a lot in my impression. I think some of his views, where he certainly, I guess he had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and he also was a strong. You know, Carl, you probably know this, but you know he pushed people to vote for Hillary and Kamala.
Oh yeah, no, he was a pro-Democrat. Yeah, he was a pro-Democrat person. Like that's he was one of those lesser of two evil people. Yeah. Which King wasn't. We saw King was not afraid to fight either party and say like both of them had problems.
Exactly correct. That's right, and that's where I have so much admiration for him, among many reasons. 240-242-5646. If you want to join us, we'd love to talk to you. 240-242-5646. I've been doing this, videos and radio for many years. Carlos, I always spent a lot of time on Dr. King's Day focusing on his words and trying to go in different directions. You know, the pro-peace king, the pro-labor, the pro-working person king, obviously the pro-civil rights, the pro-equality king. This was a very beautiful letter he wrote that I have to say, really wasn't familiar with. Letter from Birmingham jail. It's quite long. I'm not going to read all of it or even a good chunk of it, but just one segment I highlighted here, which I think is very relevant today. And I want to explore this with you just a little bit. He had apparently gotten a letter from some, I think, liberal white or moderate white clergy saying, you know, maybe you're pushing too far, too fast. These are people of goodwill in Alabama, and you're stirring people up. Maybe this isn't ideal. And you're from Atlanta, so you shouldn't necessarily be in Alabama, even though the states have this very long border. Here's what he wrote, partly. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. And I love this, I didn't highlight it, tied in a single garment of mutuality. Never again can we afford to live with a narrow provincial outside agitator idea. So I love that. I think it's beautiful and incredibly relevant as we see so much injustice throughout our country by our government, by the billionaires, and also outside of our country that our leaders are responsible for.
No, you're right. I mean, Dr. King was one of the leaders who saw that you can't just say, all right, we're gonna fix the problem in my home where I grew up and look at different parts of the country and say who cares, but also his view on foreign policy too. He fought against apartheid. He fought for Palestine as well. He saw that it is a national, not national, it is a global project to get peace, not just a national one, not just a local one as well. And I believe within that same letter, he also kind of talked about his kind of views on desegregation as well, and his fight for in his fight for desegregation, but also some of the missteps he believes he could have made when it came to that. Seeing as we saw integration happen, but we did not see kind of the equity built in, where you had Black people going to white businesses, white lunch counters, restaurants, and things of that nature. But we did not see white people doing the same towards Black businesses. So you saw almost like a downgrade of Black wealth go down. You had Black people being able to go to white schools, but which got more funding. But because of how property taxes bolsters up school funding, you had Black schools which were defunded because the Black wealthier residents moved out of the neighborhood as well.
Yeah, it's interesting when you're bringing that up, Carlos. It reminds me of how we all look back at Jackie Robinson integrating the major leagues as a unalloyed good, and obviously it was the right thing. It was the essential thing. But it also did lead to the bankruptcy or closing of Black-owned businesses, Black baseball teams that had been able to operate and generate middle class to upper middle class wealth for the owners and for management. They went out of business as a result, and that was a loss. And this kind of goes to my view always, which is when we right wrongs, you do have to recognize there can be unintended consequences. The best way to address that is make sure I always say it, everyone has to have enough. Yeah. And no one should have too much. It's not enough to say, well, we're gonna let a few Black people into the club and into the Black billionaires club. That doesn't do it. You have to make sure nobody's sleeping under bridges or begging in the streets. And frankly, there shouldn't be any billionaires club, period. And
100%. I would even say it shouldn't be a millionaire, shouldn't even be able to have that many millions.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% on that, Carlos. We're not there. And that again goes back to, I know Dr. King would say the same. I am certain of that. He was so focused on poverty. That was an incredibly important part of his message. So that's where I say we don't have that. We don't have anyone of that stature, and it really breaks my heart. Yeah, go ahead, Carlos, please.
Do you think that if Dr. King was alive today, spoke out against the duopoly, spoke out against the billionaire class, the foreign policy that we have, do you think that he would still be looked at as this kind of like civil rights legacy hero that kind of has been whitewashed, or would people have the view of him that they did when he was living, of like, actually, he's not that great, he's divisive, things like that?
So I would say, look at Bernie. Bernie, for all his flaws, Bernie is no Dr. King in many ways. Bernie is often compromised. Bernie is, his foreign policy is far from what it should be. And yet he is still beloved in large parts of this country. He's still beloved. He's maybe our most popular politician because he's still viewed as the least corrupt of all of them. So I would say if Bernie, with his flaws, can be still well liked and popular and viewed as kind of an answer to the corruption we see all around us, the inequality, I would say Dr. King would be far more beloved and would be his reputation would be even greater.
I don't know. I view it the opposite way. I view it that because Bernie also operates within the realm of like lesser of two evil type of politics and kind of, yes, he'll call out the Democratic Party, but there's always a line for it. Whereas Dr. King in his prime was not liked, and people tried to like put him to make him as a like or a divisive person. Where I think that would continue, and I see him getting the similar treatment as Cornel West did if he was still living, of like when Cornel West came out against Obama being seen as a huge problem, and kind of that's how he led to him getting blackballed, but also how like the Democratic Party doesn't like him. He's not really as promoted as he probably should be, and things like that as well. I see that kind of being Dr. King's treatment.
That's interesting. I hadn't really thought of Cornel West. I would say about Dr. West is, for me, there's a lot of luster gone when he decided not to run as a Green. I thought that was a very bad mistake, and he had an opportunity to build a movement. Mm-hmm. Running as an independent. I didn't really understand that, and I still don't, and I didn't feel like his explanations were in any way persuasive to me. So, I think Dr. King wouldn't have run for president. I'm not saying I wish. There's a side of me that says I really wish he would have run, but I don't think he would have, not so much because he might not have, whether he believed he could win or not, but he didn't view his role as being a politician. I think he viewed his role as demanding the best from leaders and building a movement of poor, struggling, and working class people, multi-racial, multi-ethnic movement committed to equal justice for all, to an end to segregation. I think that was what he saw as his role, not him being a politician. So I think that hurt, West.
Yeah.
I don't. That's really interesting, Carlos. I have to think a lot about it. Let me say one more point on that, and then get your response.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely.
People I like Cornel West. I liked him a lot. I like him less now, but I liked him. And I look at Jesse Jackson and I say, okay, there are certain aspects of each of those two men that are reminiscent of King. Jesse Jackson is a very good speaker, not as good a speaker as Dr. King. Jesse Jackson's commitment to true justice, I don't think is quite as robust as Dr. King's was. And I would say with Cornel West, he just, in terms of the charisma, he doesn't have the riz that King had.
None of them
for
did.
Whatever that's worth, for whatever it's worth.
No, you're right. I think, and this is going to sound bad, but I think Jesse Jackson and Cornel West are kind of like just, I don't want to say a downgraded version of Dr. King, but just they don't have the full, like you said, charisma, gravitas, the just movement behind them as Dr. King had with him. I also think that Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition did a lot. I think that Cornel West, he did a lot too in his kind of interactions with different leaders of kind of across different spectrums, especially how they kind of stood up for different parts of the Black coalition that were kind of ignored. Thinking back to even, it was funny because I kind of learned about this part through watching the Netflix Jeffrey Dahmer series, and learning that Jesse Jackson was actually one of the only Black leaders who went to where this was happening and supported the Black gay people who were dying, whereas a lot of the civil rights leaders were like, this isn't our problem, this is their problem. So he really saw it as like Black people are one race, not to be sectioned out by like a internal hierarchy. I think Cornel West does the same too. He stands up for all people, regardless of race. I will say this though, I do think that, I don't know if we are still in a time at this point in 2026 to have leaders like we used to, because you look at the Million Man March, you look at the March on Washington, all these different protest movements, and you compare it to like the Black Lives Matter protests or the like No Kings protests. They're not really led by a person or someone that we all like get behind, who puts out a platform that says, this is what we're fighting for. Here's how we're going to actually turn this to actual like demands into action. You kind of have these kind of movements that pop up that demand justice as a whole without having cleared out policy points, or that aren't led by people, more just like kind of headless organizations.
I think Dr. King connected the dots better than anybody else. He connected the dots of racism, imperialism, militarism, capitalism. He connected them all together in a really powerful and understandable way. And we just haven't had that kind of intellectualism on the left, certainly not anywhere else, since he was murdered. So yeah, I mean, these are all big, important issues. I still think there's got to be other factors. I mean, yes, King was a once in a lifetime talent, genius, and humanitarian. But, we've got 350 million Americans, and he was born almost 100 years ago. There should be someone else, who comes along who can at least legitimately pick up that mantle. And sadly, we haven't seen that.
I think there should be, and I think there probably are people. I think is society as a whole in the moment where that can still happen, where you can still have those like people who lead that movement, or is it always gonna be kind of this like organizational thing? It's like multiple people at the same time. Because what I also would say is kind of a downside of having these, and for a lack of a better word, figurehead people, is that once Dr. King was assassinated, you really had like the breaking up of his movement into multiple different streams, into multiple different people. You get the Andrew Young, you get the Jesse Jackson, the Al Sharptons. Everyone kind of cuts their own piece of it up, and then you kind of don't have this big robust movement. Now you have smaller little vehicles.
I mean, I give Dr. King credit for so many things, and I do think he was not. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think he was interested in running for higher office. Maybe he was, but I look at a couple of folks who did. I'll give three names who I think all had certain abilities that maybe could have thrust them into a role similar to Dr. King. And I'll start with Ralph Nader, just because of the prominence he got as a consumer advocate in the 60s. And I feel like he just sort of never really parlayed that into building a true movement that went beyond just the consumer-oriented role. I think it's partly politics. He was not more of a libertarian. And then two other names I think maybe are more, others would see more clearly than they do Nader. Bill Clinton, Barack Obama. Both of them had tremendous support and from multiracial coalitions, blacks and whites, working class blacks and whites and Latinos supported them. Now, I understand the Democrats, I don't think Clinton got a majority of white votes, but this is Bubba. This is a guy who won Arkansas's governor's mansion. He goes into office and he doesn't talk about Hillary care. He starts demanding Medicare for all. Maybe you get that. Maybe same with Obama. Maybe if you start instead of talking about big bank bailouts and continuing giving money to the fraudsters, the banksters, you give money to the underwater homeowners, and you throw those crooks in jail, the billionaires in jail. We could be in a very, very different place right now.
Oh, definitely. I think I know less about Bill Clinton other than like top highlights for history, but I think that definitely Obama, if he wanted to, he could have been like a generational type of change for society here. I think I put him in a category of the potential of being almost like an FDR figure. I think being the first Black president, being kind of like you said, getting support not just from, mainstream Democrat people, getting support from Republicans, getting support from states that were never in play at all, because he just inspired so many people and had this hope and change message. I think if Obama would have had the politics of a Bernie Sanders while as president, I think we would be in a much different place in this country. I don't think we would have ever had Trump. I don't think we would have ever had Joe Biden. I don't think we would have even had like a Kamala Harris type at all.
Well, and I'll just go back to Clinton and just say if Bill Clinton had been more of a true populist, not a corporate populist, if he had really fought for working people, if he hadn't signed NAFTA, if he hadn't signed the repeal of Glass-Steagall, I think if that had all happened, then we wouldn't have had George W. Bush. We wouldn't have had 9/11. We wouldn't have had war with Iraq and a completely destroyed Middle East and the climate that's right now unraveling as we speak.
I think
I wanted to go ahead. Yeah, no,
I think
ahead.
we even could have had, if you didn't have the passing of the crime bill, we could have even seen a different place within Black households as well. You wouldn't have so many Black people who are incarcerated as much as we do now. We could have had a transformational country if Obama or Bill Clinton actually did what they were supposed to do as president and serve the people and not the corporate interests.
Yeah, I'll second what he said about the crime bill. That was a terrible travesty of justice, and it was the way Clinton pandered to the white working class vote rather than actually delivering for them economically. As he picked their pockets with NAFTA, with quote free, unquote trade bills, with deregulation, he threw them the bone of, hey, we're going to go after Black people. That's what he did. And it was incredibly bad for our country.
And then gave Black people a kind of, hey, I'm culturally cool. I play the saxophone. I'll bring out Black singers to the White House and Black celebrities, and kind of I'm using that as what
I'll play golf with I'll play golf with Vernon Jordan. So
yeah,
it must be good.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, yeah. All right. This is a story I actually was going to segue quickly. This was a story I brought up Friday. There was anti-Muslim graffiti, very violent, at high school near me, Walt Whitman High School. And there's a little black rectangle you can see in that image. It's covering up the F word. F Muslims, there's a Jewish star, and then it says Nuke Palestine. And there's the headline. I talked about this Friday, Carlos, and I called on Montgomery County Public School System to condemn this terrible hate speech. And lo and behold, they did. I'm not saying it was because of me. I'm not going to give myself credit. I guess it must be. They must have been watching my show. They were watching Halitics, and they said, we got to do something about this. It's like if it's on the front page of the Washington Post, you got to do something.
Exactly.
So I'm going to just show real quick because I criticized them, or I expressed fear, Carlos, that they would not take this as seriously as I was hoping they would. And they did. So they deserve the props, the flowers, the credit, whatever word you want to use to describe it. And I'm just going to get this on screen because I thought the principal, I have to say, I'm not going to show the whole statement, but I think he covered all the bases. I don't know if you've been following this story at all, but Gregory Miller, he is the principal there. And I think people can read that. So what I put in pink there, this profoundly offensive, threatening, anti-Palestinian, Islamophobic hate speech is completely unacceptable and will not be tolerated. And they go on, but what I really liked, he also mentions the Star of David as though, maybe this is related to some sort of Jewish group or someone like that bringing, we got a caller too. Let me get Stephanie on in just a sec, Carlos, but I will give them credit for that. I thought this was the right statement. I had nothing to improve on it. And I do think it should be recognized when authorities do the right thing.
Yeah. I think that, they did a good thing here. Now, I also want, like, is this going to be
It wasn't that hard, right? It
Yeah,
wasn't that hard.
Like this is something that's not hard to me for them to condemn. Like if they didn't, it'd be a horrible thing. But if they did, it's like, okay, this is what, I expect you to do this. This at
or
least.
You should. I don't know if I expect it, but you absolutely should do it.
I expected it. I expected from the school system. I would think if it was like a specific lawmaker, if this wasn't a government building like a school that this happened to, I think I would see the responses probably like, oh, okay, let's see what happens. But it's a school. I would hope that they at least could say, we condemn this. Now, you didn't see them call this out as like Zionish. You didn't see them call this out as like anti-Semitic either. So yeah.
Hey, Stephanie, I see you there. Hold on, please. Just a moment more, and then we'll get right to you. I promise. Thanks for calling. This is the thing, Carlos, why I guess I should have expected. This was really a layup. It was very easy for the school system to do this. But they suspended teachers if they wore like little, I believe, I could be wrong, Free Palestine. If you wore a Free Palestine button, you got suspended. Wow. So now that said, this is easier. They're not totally right. This is just pure hate speech directed at kids. You're not going to, I'm sure there are Muslim kids in the school. All right, let's get to you, Stephanie. Thank you so much for waiting patiently. How are you today?
I'm okay, Hal. I needed to call to add to the Bill Clinton parade of horribles. Something that you guys didn't get, but you got just about everything else. But Bill Clinton repeated Ronald Reagan's welfare queen trope, raising the specter of some presumably black woman riding around in a BMW with gold chains all over her, with a boyfriend selling drugs, bilking the system as the image of welfare recipients. And he did that, and then he ended a program that I and my family were on when we were growing up called Aid to Families with Dependent Children, which was a more generous program that did not have strict time limits. He replaced it with temporary aid to needy families, which was a program that in practice I think ended up not having a strict time limits as he promoted, but was only supposed to be for 2 years. And when he did that, he didn't provide provisions for any additional help for those individuals to have child care, to go to job interviews or job training, to provide job placement or job training or anything like that. Now, we know the truth that at least then and probably now, the majority of people on these programs are in fact white. However, in the white imagination, they believe that it's black people, and that is consistently used to cut these programs. And they are disproportionately, perhaps, people of color and black people because of the racism in our system and the how that impacts the ability to get jobs, et cetera, on these programs in terms of a percentage. But as in terms of numbers, of course, there are more white people on them than black people. But he played into that trope, and he ended aid to families with dependent children and replaced it with this horrible temporary aid to needy families that has this hard time limit and no additional assistance to people to find jobs or to have child care to even be able to go find jobs. And he did that.
Well, he also, by locking people up through that omnibus crime bill, often for nonviolent offenses, he created a greater demand for those types of programs, right? Because you lose a breadwinner. The omnibus crime bill really destroyed a lot of black families and white ones too, as you mentioned, Stephanie. So you've got a primary breadwinner who's now incarcerated. The family needs revenue, needs some help, and Bill Clinton cuts that lifeline as well.
Yep, exactly. Horrible, horrible, horrible.
So what do you think, Stephanie, before we let you go, of my 3 potential kings who never came close? And is there someone else you think maybe could have been king but wasn't?
No, I wouldn't add anybody to that list. You know, I loved Jesse Jackson back in the day, and always will feel like, I mean, I don't know, that was my introduction to politics, was his campaigns, and the things he was saying made a lot of sense. And we weren't at a place in America where white people were honestly going to really hear that the way we needed to. I mean, I heard it because I had experiences that let me know vividly how much what he was saying was true about the need for the Rainbow Coalition, and that we all need to pull together, and what the priorities of government should be and what the morals of government should be. He's in my mind the one.
Is it fair, though, Stephanie, to say white people? Because as I understand, maybe I'm wrong about this, Jackson did actually pretty darn well in the Iowa caucuses.
He did. I mean, I can't remember the numbers, but he did do well. He did surprisingly well. I'm just saying that I think, I mean, his message maybe, I can't say before its time, because I honestly feel like in many ways we've gone backwards from where we were. Like, I very often feel that the movement that we had towards greater equality and civil rights when I was a child has been abandoned, and it's been replaced by this, reaction to it, which is a pushback against it, and we've lost ground in many ways. And then you are right; he did do quite well in one of the two primaries. I can't remember which. And
it was the second one. It was in '88. He did well in the caucuses there. In '84, I think Mondale just basically blew everybody else out of the water, which wasn't.
And Jackson had support. I mean, Jackson had support in the Mondale one. He did. But and that was I think the year of I can't remember now. I'm sorry. There was a fabulous.
Was that Dukakis? Well, it was Gary Hart. It was between Gary Hart and Mondale, and then there was the "Where's the beef?" was the line that torpedoed Hart.
Was where they had the really good speeches at the DNC. Ann Richards, Mario Cuomo, Jesse Jackson, all gave, and Ted Kennedy all gave like amazing speeches at that DNC. But I can't add anyone to your list, Hal. I would take away maybe some, but I wouldn't add. But
wait, who would you take away?
So I'm sorry. Tell me who are all on your list again.
Well, I just named
Ralph Nader. Who else was it?
Clinton and Obama.
Yeah.
Clinton and Obama. Yeah, definitely I'd take Clinton off the list. I mean, who had the potential to be a progressive leader for change? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, who could have taken up the mantle and continued the progress that Dr. King started us down?
I just don't think Ralph's tone was such that he could have gotten. I like him. I voted for him a time or two, but I don't think he could have gotten traction from a message delivery perspective. I think Obama was the only one, but I don't know, he didn't believe enough in the progressive things he was saying when he was on the campaign trail. I feel that he didn't really believe it, and he didn't even really try to deliver on it. He rolled over for the pressure that you get when you're in the White House, and it was very disappointing because he certainly rhetorically was a lot more progressive than he was in action. So he was the only one in your list. Please throw Clinton in the trash. He was awful.
Oh, I'm not defending these people. And thanks so much, Stephanie. I'm just saying they were, I think, positioned to perhaps lead the movement, and they failed. Nader, I don't think people, back in the 80s, 90s, he was very. He had a lot of following. People really had great admiration for him. I think that's a little bit forgotten.
What? Yeah. Why do you think people forget? Because I'll be honest with you. Outside of when I used to work for Public Citizen, I really barely heard anything about Ralph Nader in history. Like I
you
just
weren't
never,
alive in the 80s and 90s,
I know.
Carlos.
So that's why. What happened? Like, what happened? Was it because they blamed him for Al Gore's loss, that it was kind of like he just became persona non grata? Well,
I blamed him for Al Gore's loss. I'm one of those who do that, and I still do. And I'm happy to argue.
Isn't it not his fault?
Isn't
it Bush's brother's fault in the Supreme Court in Florida?
See, I want to just make this a little bit of a point about this. I think Al Gore would have been a much better president. I could be wrong about this. He was a Democrat. It's true. He was somewhat of a centrist, a moderate, whatever. I believe he would have been a much better president than George W. Bush. That's why I voted for Al Gore. But I also don't think, and that's why I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, because I didn't at the time think she would be any better or hardly better at all than Trump. And even Harris, I wasn't convinced would be much better. So I'll vote for a Democrat if I think they're going to be a good president. I thought Obama would be a really good president. I was disappointed. But about Nader, I also don't think he would have been a better president than Al Gore. I thought Jill Stein would have been a much better president than either Hillary and certainly than Trump, and a much better president than Harris or obviously Trump. So I was happy to vote. I had no problem voting for somebody I thought would be a good president. Nader, somewhat of a libertarian. Nader seems to have an issue with what he would call big government stepping in to help people. It's not always there for that, as my recollection. And I think he is kind of a narcissist. He puts Ralph Nader first. That was the sense I always got of him.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way I watch him sometimes come on the Bad Faith podcast with Brianna Joy Gray, and just his like air about him, the way he talks is like people should just know what to do. I know what to do. It's this very like I'm better than thou are type of attitude he has, which I'm not a fan of. But I mean, hey, had a good organization. I will say that. Started a good nonprofit.
All right, 240-242-5646. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for calling in. Here's a comment. We're going to actually, Carlos, I want to talk about it. We've got a hard stop. So
no, I can go to like 105 the latest, but like let's also talk about the Hoyer thing too.
All right, real quick. So Carlos lives in, I believe, correct, and I always have to be careful, but you live in District 5, right? Maryland D5. No, yes. You used to live in Maryland D5, but you don't anymore.
Maryland D5 technically still. Yeah.
You still okay?
Yeah, I'm still a D5 resident. Yeah.
Okay, you're okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the current D5 representative in Congress is this giant, right? He's a giant of the House, Steny Hoyer, tremendous influence. He kind of a power broker. He pushed people out of Democratic primaries, telling them, don't run, we don't want you. And people would listen. There's a bunch of people who are running for his seat now. This is from Maryland Matters. Did he tell, by the way, this is one of my least, look, they all suck, but this guy really is bad. Do you think he went to Mamdani and said, you gotta no more, we're not going after Hakeem? Do you think he was like, do you think he went to AOC? Because AOC said, oh, this is the wrong, Dr. King said it's not the wrong time. If there's injustice anywhere, we got to fight it everywhere. And Mamdani and well, we got we don't have a problem with Hakeem, the congressman from Israel and Wall Street.
I mean, I'll say this. Honestly, probably. The weird thing is when people look at Hoyer, because he's not like the front-facing person, a lot of people don't think he like probably does all this like political maneuvering. But as we've seen from reports, he is a more behind-the-scenes person. He will orchestrate votes, move things around, cancel primaries, like you say, get people to not run or not talk on things in the behind the scenes. But up front, you don't really hear about it too much. I could see possible, or if he didn't talk to them directly because him being from Maryland, I could see him definitely talking to like donors and talking to like behind the scenes people and being like, yeah, I have a slate of people who are like ready to take him out, push money behind Cuomo, or just destroy his like campaign, or even bolster Kathy Hochul to not support Mamdani stuff.
Right. Or talk to like Jamie Raskin and say to him, you got to go to these guys because you did endorse, because Raskin did endorse. I think he's endorsed both of them, AOC and Mamdani, but he definitely endorsed Mamdani. I'm sure he endorsed AOC, and say, listen, I have my limits. It's fine. You want to go after Cuomo and Adams, I'm okay with that, but no. It's a mob boss mentality. Like, hey, go tell them I'm kind of done with this. Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure that Hoyer was in the room when the strategy was came up with to stop any real insurgent campaign to unseat powerful, corrupt Democrats. Obviously, including himself. Too. So who's this guy Boafo? And did I say his name right? I think
it's Boafo.
Boafo?
Yeah, I
You're
think it's
not familiar with
Boafo.
him?
No, I am. He actually used to work for Steny Hoyer as his, I believe, campaign manager. He's like moderate adjacent establishment, and I want one person, people to kind of get this part, is that when we say establishment and moderate, is it going to be exactly the same as Hoyer's moderate and establishment? No, it's probably going to be a little like populist rhetoric around it, but he's a moderate. He's a Hoyerite, as a term that I'm gonna start using for people. And you see how much he raised in one day, $100,000. I don't know a lot of people, unless you are very popular amongst the grassroots and amongst progressive circles, who can just raise $100,000 in one day.
Or else you're tied into the donor class and you're going to do favors for the bill. You know, the maybe Maryland doesn't have that many billionaires, but you can definitely do favors.
No, we have a lot of wealthy people. Yeah, we have a lot of wealthy people, but also remember, it's a national, it's a federal race too. That's so you're going to get in a lot of these like multiple organizations to throw in money, or corporations.
To me, the $100,000 in one day is a very bright red flag. It's a big concern. I heard of this guy, Boafo, from a friend of Halitics, Ed Fishman, who I was talking to yesterday, and I thought, but I may be wrong, Ed had suggested he was somewhat of a progressive. Is that your understanding? He is in the Maryland State House, so he must have some voting record.
Yeah, he has voting record. I believe he has, I think he had a good stand. He had voted for, I believe, a bill that was like calling for an end to like the BDS law or something around Palestine. I can't remember at this moment now. I will say that he is sponsoring from what it seems like could be good legislation, which I covered on my podcast separately, was about how passing legislation to make it so that ICE agents who signed up to become ICE agents after Trump kind of bolstered up the people or the group, is to bar them from becoming state police officers in any form of like law enforcement within the state. I talked about that on my podcast, how like it's a good bill. I think it's also kind of, it doesn't go far enough. There are a lot of other, I mean, just because you became ICE recently doesn't mean that you still didn't have the same view of people who became ICE officers back in 2015 and things like that as well. So
yeah, I'm sorry I cut you off there for a second. I was trying to get the slide up, but we got you back. We got you right back.
Oh yeah,
Carlos. I wanted to get the slide up of Boafo's website, and I can't seem to do that right now. So maybe we won't. But it's really okay if we don't. But what's interesting to me is he's got an image of, I guess, Bestie, former Mayor Pete Buttigieg is the
wait. Where are you looking at? Because I'm also on the website.
The New Deal leaders / Boafo. Maybe that's not. Yeah. See, this is a problem. I did that again. Sorry, folks. Yeah, maybe that's not his website.
I found his.
I guess that's Mayor Pete. Mayor Pete is highlighting him. Is what's going on there.
Oh, that's a little okay.
Which is a little weird, but that's a little scary too, right?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I will say, can I mention one thing real quick, Hal? Because I saw you put up on on the block of the block about the 14 endorsements with the $100,000 that he raised. One thing, if you go to his website, and I'll put it here in the chat for you, is that he has, from what it seems, no policy platform. And that's been the one thing I've never understood with like endorsements of how do you endorse people before you have a platform? Because that means really I'm just supporting this person's personality and them as a person. They could go in and say, I am for expanding ICE. And they would say, oh, I didn't know he was for that. Like, I just don't get how you get political endorsements before having a piece of policy platform.
Well, they know the politicians know where he's going to stand. I mean, he's not putting it down for us to see. He doesn't want to be, he doesn't want to be attacked for this view or that view. He wants to raise money, so he's not going to say I'm for Medicare for all because he wants to raise money from for-profit healthcare executives. At the same time, he's not going to say I support for-profit healthcare because that will piss people off. So he, is mealy-mouthed. I believe healthcare is a human right, but we can't afford it. There's a lot of so that's a bit. But see, again, we the voters need to be much more willing to just say,
No.
hey, F you. You don't tell me what you're going to do specifically. You're not going to like, here we go. Like this is his, and Boafo's website. I know nothing about this man. I never even heard of him until yesterday. And I'm not saying I won't vote for him, but fighting for Maryland is just a complete nothing. It means nothing.
Mean anything. That means nothing. It's all these like slogans, which I think that for too long, the public has kind of heard these slogans and they put it in such a way where you as a voter, you're going to think, oh, well, I believe fighting for Maryland means X, Y, and Z. So that I just put that vibe onto them and think that that's what he supports. You could think just by reading Fighting from Maryland, maybe some of his stuff about the meet him part of that, oh, he must support like universal health care, canceling college loan debt and things of that nature just because, he wants to fight for us. That may not be what that means. Just like the people talk about abolish ICE now, you see Democrats talking now about instead of abolish ICE, let's get them body cameras and more training. So you don't know how these elected officials, what their policy points are or where they stand on the issues without a actual issues or a policy platform page.
Yeah, no, 100% on that, Carlos. And again, the reason they don't want to do it is because they don't want to offend donors, and they also don't want to offend potential voters. I think this is an opportunity for true leftists, though, because I think voters do want clear-cut positions. They do want people who take stances that challenge elites.
Yeah.
And yet we seem incapable of finding those candidates. Well, Mom Donnie's a good example of that, right? He wasn't mealy-mouthed and he won. AOC, when she ran in 2016 or 18, she was an example of that.
Yeah.
But we just,
I think this district can be won. I think this district can become, I think it's, it's some points against it just because of like the wealth that is within this district, the kind of like centrism that we've had under Hoyer for all these years. I think that you also got to key into even the people. I think this is where independent media is going to play a big kind of headline within this, is because you look at how look at Maryland Matters and the people, which I will say this. I give credit to Maryland Matters of being kind of like one of the only statewide kind of news sources that we have that cover things around the. Exactly. Like when you look at the people who they interviewed about this race, they didn't interview like some of the big name progressive people that may be within that district. They interviewed like a C.T. Wilson, Arthur Ellis, which Arthur Ellis actually may be one of the most progressive people in that race. Actually, it turns out.
It's true. And he's not that progressive.
He's not. Yeah, C.T. Wilson is going to be like more conservative probably than like Hoyer.
He's a problem. C.T. Wilson is a problem.
Yeah.
And he's going to have a lot of money and he could win this. You mentioned Arthur Ellis. I like Arthur Ellis. I think he's a nice guy. I don't view him as a strong advocate, right? He's a nice man. He's a nice guy. He's like your uncle who gives you like finds a quarter in your ear or something like that.
Really? Yeah.
Isn't that, is that a fair? That's kind of
a fair vibe to him. Yeah. Like he's like a family member. Like that's it. I don't think he's going to go up there and lead like a movement, but I think he'll take up some good legislation. He'll vote for it. I think he'll also vote for the establishment. Now, this is one person. Look, I don't care how the left feels about me saying this. I do not understand the bolstering up of Harry Dunn. I legit think the only reason he is getting bolstered is because he was a Capitol Police officer during the January 6th riots. I do not get how you run in District 3, you live in District 8, but there's people talking about you running in District 5. My thing is this: either running your district or move somewhere else.
I was wondering about that because he has run in other districts. So what's that about?
It makes me angry.
It is just at 105, Carlos, but before now you kind of brought us to this place. So anything about Nicole Williams? I don't know these folks. I've heard the names. I'm Arthur Ellis, but
Nicole Williams is actually good in the Maryland House of Delegates when it comes to criminal justice legislation. I believe she is actually sponsoring the bill to ban 287G, which is legislation that allows local police to work in coordination with ICE. So she actually does have some like progressive bona fides when it comes to legal justice reform things. Again, I don't know any of these people as like progressive firebrand people. But also, I don't know, does that work in Maryland's 5th district to be that kind of firebrand?
It's a pretty, like you said, a lot of homeowners, conservative. It is a large African-American population, but affluent and churchgoers and not necessarily.
You have Southern Maryland, too. You have I mean, I'll say this.
Terry Jackson
is progressive, it seems.
Okay. All right.
He has like a platform page that has some progressive points on it. I'd be interested in seeing. I wonder.
We'll get into this as we move forward into this year with Carlos. But I have a final statement, and I want your response. Then you got to go after all this. Mm-hmm. What we need to do on the left is have enough power, enough influence that we can actually identify, promote, and win elections with true leftists who are independent of the Democratic Party.
100%. And I'll add on to that. When they do get in office, I need us to also treat them like we do these centrist candidates as well.
We gotta have our hands on their throat.
Yes, hold them to their policy points and do not allow them to switch up on us and just say, hey, well, they supported us back then, so we got to hold on to them.
Thank you so much, Carlos Childs, the left-handed leftist. There's more about Carlos in the show description. I will be back tomorrow with more Halitics. Thanks so much for being